Hi, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We are so excited to have Charles Lamb with us today. He is an expert in CRMs, which are something about managing your people that you work with, your customers, your clients, the potential people that you're going to speak with, if you have product, all different kinds of things. But he can explain it better because, as you all know, I am high check, low tech. And so Charles is just the best for me. I can't tell you what a great person he is. He has in the past worked for a company and had his own company and had 800 people he supervised. And I just can't even imagine what that would be like. But Charles, thank you for coming on today and take it away.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Well, I'll try and not bore you, but hit you with the short version of best practice, and I'll pull up a couple of slides here. Let me share with you. One of the things that I thought might be advantageous was to learn a little bit about the way we think. I'll get the sharing here real shortly. The way we think about a CRM client. And can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, that's not it. Hang on. Well, there we go.
Card.
Very good. Go. Yeah. So we always talk about this, I run the strategy session. So I'm the senior director for strategy, and I'd love to say the CRM strategy, but very often it's all about the client's business and matching a strategy that works for them. And so we always have this slogan is, what is their shortest path to a profitable yes? Now, everything you do in life, and especially in business and your business decisions, usually has a great way to do it. And then obviously other ways that aren't as great. So we try to focus and find the possible paths that deliver the greatest amount of success for a client. This isn't about the best practice. We have a 97% client retention because we look at a client this way. And it's to where we actually get in and wheedle out of them what their best paths are and based on what their best needs are. And so I will kind of go around this circle. I'm going to share a high level view of what we think business practice is. And just a little preemptive discovery to share when we get to the circle, it may mean more to you. We do a lot of surveys, and one of the surveys that we do is we'll ask people in business, when you go to whatever CRM you might use, whatever tools that you might use, do you find the data inside your CRM exceptional quality? Do you find it the actual value that you were looking to find? And this slide says it all. This slide really should be reversed, but this slide is the answers come back to us. Most people, or a lot of people, say the data I went to look for is not there. And for many reasons, the low quality, the next one, and so on. So moderate to non-existent are the biggest returning categories for data. And obviously data is what makes decisions. So when you look inside your CRM, you're looking for the opportunity to find value, to make that advancement, to make that decision. And this is what we see as an obstacle. And then when you look at, the systems and the accountability and the things that, share why a CRM is not used. So one side of the fence is the data is not there, or it's low quality, or whatever. The other side of the fence is, will my team use the tool? And do they use the tool? And I don't need to read all these answers off to you, but you can kind of see the biggest returning issues of why they're not using it is rogue processes, things, accountability, people aren't held accountable, missing strategy. Those are the three big ones. So when you combine this slide and the previous slide, you can kind of see we have our work cut out for us. And this is not always an adversarial environment. It's many times it's just a learning environment. So being able to discover the shortest path to getting success inside the client environment. Sales team model, or forget sales team model. The model that keeps the team involved and doing what they're purposed to do is one of the best recommendations we can drive for our clients. So when we see a team of, it's very often I'll interview 10 salespeople from a particular client office and or business development and or client retention teams. And I ask them, what are your values? What is your objectives? What are your driving goals? What's the recipe for this particular team's success? And you can find very often that it's different based on each person you talk to, even though they all work in the same place and sometimes even carry the same responsibility. So out of this slide and the previous two, you can see there's a lot of things that could keep you from executing, say, at a best practice successful level. The team model should be designed to where each position on the team spends most of their time doing exactly what you want them to do versus, being secretarial or all of the administrative things that you could imagine get in the way. So when we bring on a client, when we're engaging with a client strategy, we have programs where we support their development of, how do we get them from 0 to 100 miles an hour and successful. We look at this little path, and I'll try to go through it to where you can completely understand it. I've spent 10 years developing this plan. And one of the things I can tell you is the 12 o'clock position, where I sit down and I'll ask a business owner, and this is the question I ask them: why do you come to work every day? What is it that drives you each and every day? Why do you spend your time doing what you do? And there's got to be an answer there somewhere. Maybe I'm bored and I have nothing else to do. That's obviously, that's not ever come up, but that's possibly one answer. The other answer is, do you want to sell your business one day? Is that one of your key business objectives? Or no, I want to give it to the family. I want to pass it down to my kids or whatever. Either way, the kids or whoever would be the highest bidder in purchasing your business, they're going to want to know that, one, the data that you share with them about your business as they review your company, they're going to want to know that data is accurate, that it's spot on, that it reflects a true slice or picture of your company. And the other question we ask them is, okay, when they do come up with an answer, by the way, the average answer takes about 2 months to get it back from the owner. Why do you do what you do? And sometimes in Texas, we say it's like a cow staring at a new gate. We ask them that question and they look at us like, I didn't see that coming. And so ultimately, if you're going to sell your business, and the next question I'm going to ask you is when, and then you're going to go back for another month and a half and try to figure that answer. Then when you come back and you tell me it's 10 years, it's a 10-year plan, we ask, when do you want to organize and straighten and polish the processes towards success? Do you want to wait 9 years, 355 days, and then start? Or do you want to start tomorrow morning? And so ultimately, the tomorrow morning answer gets you the best return on your business. So key business objectives. If I do nothing in my plan to help this client, but get that solved, then ultimately we've solved one of the biggest issues that, the answers to one of the issues that they may not even had focused on. So key business objectives is all about what the owner wants, the executive team wants, the partners want, whatever. What do they want out of the business? At the 1 o'clock position, it's market strategy. So what does your market want from your business? So if you're sitting there looking out into any one of our potential clients, I personally engage with about 250 different businesses. And so when I'm sitting there, I'll draw their sales team aside and I'll say, tell me your story. If I was your perfect prospect, tell me your story. And like I said earlier, I can end up getting all kinds of answers. Who's your best prospect? Where do you find the shortest path to yes? And ultimately, the market strategy is really, if you look at any marketplace, there are great places you can go to generate a sale or business or, a partnership or whatever your company's driving, or there are terrible places to go. And ultimately, as a team matures, they learn where their go-to-market strategy really is. So between the 12 o'clock and the 1 o'clock, we learn everything about what the owners want. And then we ultimately learn not only what does your market want, but we learn about your primary targets, those people who are worth seeking out, those people who you should be focused on. And then obviously the opposite is who you wouldn't be focused on. So if we can learn what you want and learn what your market wants and everything around the circle after that, we build towards driving to those two targets, then we've actually created. We see this circle taking about a year to go through. And then, because, you don't turn around tomorrow and everything pops into place. At the 3 o'clock position, the marketing plan includes many, many things. It includes a website. It includes, and what does the value proposition circle around? It talks about compensation. How does your team make money? Your value proposition is polished in this particular stage. What is it that you would say? And I've always shared this picture. This is a visualization that really works well. At the marketing plan, if you were standing in a room and I had a microphone and I was about to hand it to you and you were about to tell 100 of your best possible targets about your business, about your opportunities, and you were able to, and I said, give them the best story you could give them for the widest swath of capture. You want to capture as many of these 100 as you can. And I tell you now, before I let you talk, just know that 2 of your competitors are going to get the mic when you're done. They're going to talk to the same 100 people. So in the marketing plan, this thought process really drives people to be able to stop and really nurture what their value propositions are, if there's more than one. And it helps them understand the products and services that they deliver that have the best possible return for their company and the highest value for their prospects. It's always a challenge when you're going to give them your best spiel, and then you turn around and hand your microphone to a competitor who has a spiel similar. So part of the marketing plan, if you can identify it, is what do you do that no one else does? And I can tell you with enough thought and process around that one question, you can usually come up with a unique value proposition that drives the core reason why people do business with you. And I can tell you, I've done exercises and workshops where I'll ask everyone that question, and then I'll say, write it down on a piece of paper. And then I let them all stand up, and they're all saying the same thing. Strong reputation. I've been in the marketplace for X number of years. We have the highest rating, blah, blah, blah. And then you'll have number 2 stand up, number 3 stand up. They're all reading the same thing. So if you're looking for a marketing plan, you also want to come up with the greatest differentiations that you possibly can include in that, so that you are able to, share. And the other thing is you should tell your team what they are, because if your team is making up the value proposition client by client, most likely your marketing plan isn't solid enough. So you should be able to share with them what that is. The next step is the team that's going to execute my 12 o'clock and my 1 o'clock position using the tools that I create in the marketing plan. Are they the right team? Now, you've heard of the old Three Stooges, Huey, Dewey, and Louie, and all the cartoons and everything. There's always a team that's perfect. And there's always team members that probably should have another assignment inside of your company where they are more skilled. So when you create your marketing plan, when you create the processes that they should follow, when you create the activity levels that you expect, when you create all of that, then you have to kind of turn around and hand them each a mirror and say, are you the team member that can do this? And that doesn't mean anyone gets fired. That simply means ultimately put the square peg in the square hole, right? And pull your talent to the team in the way that it's needed. So as you can see, some of those are grayed out. Some of those people may move to another particular, responsibility inside the company. And the key thing about the team model is that we want whatever our marketing plan gives us as far as process and activity, we want the right team members to ultimately be able to execute that most of their working day. Right. So that, they're not doing, I don't know if you ever remember the Lucille Ball episode where she was working in a chocolate candy factory and she was running back and forth and trying to do everything and ended up chocolate on the floor in her hat and her mouth. That's not the team we want. We want a team that is executing well, that ultimately knows what they have to do. They know how they're going to make money, and ultimately they have the time and capabilities to deliver their day into what serves them the most, which is ultimately what serves the company the most. Training is where we take the marketing plan and the right team and we drive into every aspect of what their targets are for activity. So here's an example. I'm working with a company in Georgia. They're looking for new hires. Imagine that, right? They're looking for new hires. And one of the things that they said was, what should I expect from a new hire? In other words, it was, in this case, a sales position. It's not always, but in this case it was. And he was saying, how much should I expect them to produce? And because he was going to give some sort of a cash draw allowance until they started producing up to 3 months. And I said, well, why don't you just give me that money and then not hire them, because that's going to be a waste of money. I believe that your first instructional activity should, when you're hiring, when you're driving talent, they should walk into a position, one, where they can spend most of their day doing what you expect, as I mentioned, but they also should be able to drive the best possible outcome for results. And that means activity. If it takes on the average someone from 0 days to 6 months to generate let's call it a pipeline or opportunity management list, then you really should, have the ability to get them there by activity. So if it's a revenue generated type of training that they must learn, how do they make money? Then you want to make sure that they have the ability to, until they make money, know what activities required to generate that. So if they're cranking on it and it's going to take them a good 120 days before they make the kind of money they need, what level of activity and what type of activity is going to drive them to success to get to that? Because you don't want to invest, even if you're not fronting any money, you don't want to invest time, effort, and focus on someone who's really going to drop out in 90 days or 120 days. So drive the best possible activity recommendation as well as that. What is activity? Activity is how you reach out to your marketplace, how you go to your 1 o'clock position up there, how many X's, calls, emails, how many of what gets how much. Here's an example. I'm working with a office network market, a network company, not network marketing. They manage networks. And when we first started working with them, so their activity was calling CFOs. They only call CFOs. They don't call anyone else. They would set appointments with the CFO to share a financial value proposition of why they should manage your network and the actual dollars in return that were, the benefactor for doing business. And when you turn around and you drive the value proposition of a financial thing, they would set 25 appointments in about 2 months. One person would set 25 appointments. In the beginning, out of 25, they would have one deal move forward for contract. So if you think about it, all they have to do is 50 to get 2 and 75 to get 3. Now, is that humanly possible? Probably not. But ultimately, you see, when they first started out, it was 25 to 1. Now, 8 months into it, it was 12 to 2. So they would do 12 appointments to 2 candidates. Now, if you take exponentially their 10 people and say 2 times 10, that's how many deals were moving forward in 8 months, right? So you see the numbers actually work for them because the activity was set up right in the very, very beginning. So, and I haven't yet seen anyone. It may take some companies a year to get there versus 8 months, but I haven't seen anyone, when they develop the strategy, the team, and the training of what is expected, I haven't seen really anyone who doesn't progress with reducing the number of, let's call it, storytelling events down to a smaller number and then a greater number of prospects that come out of that. Because along the way, you get better at telling your story. You've heard every objection. So if the activity is high, you ultimately hear a lot of feedback, whether it's good, bad, or ugly. You hear all of the reasons why people will or won't do business with you. And as you learn those, discuss those, polish those, you ultimately learn how to comfortably say, yeah, that's really not of an objection. Here's why. And you're able to comfortably turn that around. So training is everything that they need to do to stay at their job, spending most of their time being effective in converting those high number of discovery meetings into prospects. Execution is the actual act of what you expect them to do. And literally, it's not unheard of in what I get to observe. And a lot of this sounds like I'm making someone do this. A lot of it is just I get to watch and listen and hear people and how they bring about their execution. But dealing with a company out of St. Louis right now that has about 12 sales business development representatives, and they're on the phone constantly every day. Their requirement is to execute and log 800 calls in a week. That's outbound storytelling, cold calls. That is, I'm telling my number one position up there on the chart. I'm telling my market, I'm Charles, here's where I work. My goals are to hopefully create a business relationship with you. Here's our value. Here's why people like you would listen to me. And ultimately, one day we close the gap to where we're meeting face to face or on a Zoom. And so the execution part really goes all the way back to the marketing plan, because it involves how I hire someone. So have you ever hired someone in your lifetime or been hired and you get there and the job is nothing like what you thought it was going to be, right? So ultimately the hiring is shouldn't be a surprise, and what you're expected to do shouldn't be a surprise. And so the guy in Georgia I was working with, he hired some guys that were in the industry he was in, but they came from companies that had no process, they had no strategy, they had no marketing plan, they had no team training. So when he got there, some of his guys were in like shock because they had never seen such structure. Structure's not bad as long as it lets that person drive most of the day towards what their goals are. Measuring is probably one of the most important things on this entire circle. Now, measuring is 3/4 of the way around the circle, but it's not necessarily one of the last things you get to. Measuring is you measure all the way, every bit of it. And like I said, if this circle takes a year to come all the way around, you can imagine you don't stop at 12 o'clock, you go back around again. So this could be an annual process that you are constantly proving, tweaking, adjusting, truing up every position on how you go to market. Measuring is what I call the accountability position, where you're pulling your team in. And I don't believe in beating people over the head. I believe you lead them to success. So measuring is where you analyze their activity and drive that to its best possible position for them to accomplish whatever they have to accomplish. Calls, phone calls, quota, number of dollars in opportunity that you're managing, all of those things that make a success. Now, in the funnel maker world, we actually monitor the items that are associated, the items of tasks, the tasks that you do. We associate them to the wins in your opportunity. So if you were saying, what am I going to measure? I'm going to start looking at the things that are associated to my team's wins, and I'm going to turn around and then bring that back into my instruction, my direction, my guidance, over top of how do I measure their effectiveness, right? And the accountability. In the sales world, and CRMs are not always used by a sales team, but in the sales world, it's the bottom line, isn't it? What'd you sell today, right? I mean, ultimately, where's the beef? And so that's one way to measure. The other way to measure is, okay, if I have this guy who's not delivering the beef, how do I get him from where he is to where he can? And so we're going to measure and instruct and what I would call, guide or manage them to, they get a great understanding of what you expect. And also in every team, there's always people who are at the top and always people that are lagging behind. And at least when you're measuring things, you can see at least some people get to the top. Now, if you're measuring a team and no one's making it to where you expect them to make, either your desires are out of line or your processes aren't quite yet there to drive what you feel is appropriate results.
Charles, it looks like Peggy has a question here.
Oh, sorry. Thank you.
You're muted, Peggy.
You did. So thank you, Charles, for all of this. I'm curious as to, because you've worked with a lot of other companies and you're talking basically about how you do training, but how does this compare to other CRM companies like their Salesforce and I don't know who they all are, frankly.
Keep, yes. Infusionsoft.
Yeah, like those.
So one of the things so you'll find other systems, very good question. You'll find very part of the success of being able to execute day to day is being able to have the tools you need, and tools then relate to information. And of course, we started this whole thing with sharing. It does or doesn't, have the information you hope is inside your CRM. Salesforce is obviously the elephant in the room. I've used Salesforce in 3 career positions. I don't have a negative word to say about Salesforce. They're just different models. So Funnel Maker comes with a complete tool set of of tools already built in and integrated. So for example, in the Salesforce world, if you wanted email marketing, you would go get Pardot. Pardot is a separate software, and you would bolt them together, and then they would function like Funnel Maker does from the get-go. So a lot of our philosophies are, we want the tools already built in that you may or may not find in a Salesforce world. So HubSpot is a kind of a hybrid model. HubSpot's very popular, and HubSpot is a model where they'll give you a free low end, but it doesn't, even though they have some of the things you'll see on the screen here, they don't turn on until you get out of the free world. So by the time you get out of the free world, you're 3 times our cost. So that's how we would relate against the HubSpot. Our cost is very efficient and affordable. And if you look at the 7 o'clock position on this chart, the marketing workflow is in the very bottom package of our software, all the way up to the enterprise level. So HubSpot doesn't have workflow at the bottom end. So that would be a difference. Zoho is a very popular one too, and I think their challenge is they're built out of India. Nothing against India, but their support is at what I would say an India level. And so when you want to have someone understand your problems and your business and everything like that, it's sometimes a challenge. Those are the things I hear when we take on a Zoho client. So that's that. I think the advantage of what our business model is and how we deliver success is we've already made all the connections to about 90% of what most people want. There's always some new thing or different thing that Cliff will tell you that's not in there, but ultimately there's always something that could be added for the right volume of desire, and we look at that constantly.
Well, at Salesforce, somebody like me that's not tech savvy in any way, I would have to hire somebody to create the program, which they didn't tell me that's what I needed to do. They made it sound like Funnel Maker. We could just come in and start working. Well, that's not true at all. I think I spent about 100 hours trying to learn it, and then I still had to put the thing together, which I didn't realize. That's not what they told me. What they told me and what happened were 2 different stories. So
that's exactly right.
Unless you're a high-tech person, Funnel Maker, and Funnel Maker's really made for the really, I gather, large companies like Confusionsoft is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know anything about Confusionsoft. I've just always been steered away from it.
Salesforce is also very expensive if you want to add any customizations to it. They can be very expensive.
It's not only can be expensive, but it also charges you per user. And should you want support, even though you may have only one user, like an admin who would be the person on your side, they upcharge every subscription 25% for support. Our price has support in it. So at the end of the day, we're just 2 different belief systems as far as models. If you look at our business model at the end game goal, we're a subscription company. And the longer you keep our subscription, that's our success. So if we can add things as we go and as we continually review to add things and integrate them, then ultimately that's a success. And then the client doesn't have to go bolt on something to try and get that arranged. But questions at all? That's really what I wanted to share. Anyone have any, or is this the time for questions?
Yep,
Peggy?
It's time for questions. Well, we started asking them. It's time for questions.
Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions? A lot of you look like you don't actually use is there anybody who is using a CRM right now and you're finding it's working for you, or you have questions about it, or Charles is really smart. He can answer he'll know what the competition's doing.
I think I'm more like you, Peggy, in that I don't feel I'm very techno savvy. And I too started working with Keep, and they kind of similar to what you experienced with Salesforce. I think they made it sound like it was so automated and simple. And to someone like myself, I didn't find that to be true. So I didn't end up staying with them.
Keep is, Cliff, isn't Keep now the Confusionsoft?
It is. There's supposed to be an easier version of it, but not for me.
Oh, okay. Is there anybody else who's using? Could we stop sharing your screen? Is that okay?
It is absolutely okay. Let me hit the
so
stop.
we can see everybody and see who might have some questions. Oh, Fred.
This is the first time I've heard of this funnel maker.
Yeah.
But I'm going to have to check it out because I've used Salesforce, which is a nightmare unless you're a huge company. I've used Zoho before. There's better things out there, and HubSpot is just way too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
They're just cost prohibitive if it's just one or two people.
Well, Sarah, we could do an introduction if you'd like to speak to Charles about that.
Yeah, I want to go check it out online.
Oh, you could do that also, but then you should speak to Charles.
Yes.
Want to learn?
Are you
more.
planning to go over pricing, Charles?
I can that's up to Peggy. I'm her guest here.
Yeah, we didn't ask him to do that, but if you want, we want all your questions answered. Fred's got a question. Could he ask his?
Yeah, certainly.
And then we'll see what about pricing. That's okay with y'all. You're still muted, I think.
You're muted there, Fred.
Okay, is that working now?
Yep.
Great. Charles, I was just wondering if you could give us any examples on how people or companies have used your product in the real estate space, either private in real estate investing, either passive or active type opportunities. Are there any real world examples you can share with us?
Most of the realtors, real estate, commercial realtors, those types of program or business entities use and love our telephony product. So it's built in. So if you're driving down the road and a client calls you or you call a client, imagine you have your conversation and then you hang up the phone. That call is completely logged in your CRM already. So that's one of the things the real estate industry loves, is because they're not sitting behind a desk most of the time, they're on the go. And so the other thing is we integrate your business email with your CRM. So although you may function out of Outlook or your G Suite or whatever, we're pulling over all business related contacts and history over there so you don't have to. A lot of the things that you would see in a traditional CRM, we're logging for you. If you have a client or a contact you've been engaged in conversation and they're banging around on your website, or depending on the types of downloadables and web properties you have, when they're on your website, I get alerts all the time where it'll say John Doe is on your website. Here's the 3 pages he's looked at. Here's his phone number. So, and I'm eating lunch. So that's that. The other thing we do that the realtors really, really dig is strangers who call your number. By strangers, I mean people that are not in your database. Okay. So an unknown caller, we still capture all that information. Now, it may have been a guy trying to sell you a copier and you hit delete, but it also may have been, Bob Smith called you because John Doe referred, and you don't have Bob Smith in your database. So all of a sudden we bring that in, and with a couple of clicks, you can create a record if you choose to keep that call. So the unknown caller thing is amazing. And we stake a claim that we can get you 100% of the notes. Remember the first slide? I don't know if you were on when the first slide was shown, but 100% of the notes, 100% of the time. So, and again, with the focus of keeping your team busy doing what they should be doing instead of secretarial work. That's really our philosophy. So 100% of the notes, 100% of the time, while you spend 100% of your effort doing what you need to do. So
does that answer your question, Fred?
I mean, that helps me see who kind of the top users of it is. I totally imagine that real estate agents and brokers would want something like this to manage the volume of their activities. I'm thinking more along the lines of the individual investors and people that are out there looking for passive deals or looking at a variety of investment opportunities. How does it, does it fit their model or their needs as well as it does for someone who's in the real estate buying and selling or brokerage activity sort of model?
Well, they would be in your database, so you would have to have found the people and put them in your database. This isn't going to go find the people for you,
right?
Like that. But it can track, which is I always wonder, well, how can I have this conversation with somebody when I already know that they opened an email or they clicked that email,
downloaded
so
something.
I need to have the conversation in a different way, so it doesn't sound like I'm spying on somebody, because I'm not really.
Right.
You need to know who to follow up with, right? That's why you get that workflow that says so and so went through your website and has now signed up. You might want to give them a call.
Right.
Matt.
Yes, thanks. So I used Zoho for a while, a long time ago, and I found it really clunky and hard to read because the font color I couldn't change was just very light. I don't understand that at all. But now I'm using the free version of HubSpot for my investor database, and I can do emails. It does track who clicks through and who opens the web page. But I just find it very slow. If I'm looking for a specific investor, I get a spinning prompt. I only have 250 investors in my database. So can you talk about performance with Funnel Maker? And how much time would one spend pulling up reports or creating a subset of folks to reach out to?
Well, so part of it is your connection, right? I mean, cloud-based systems are only as good as your connection. Now, if you have a great connection.
That's not true. I'm a recovering software engineer, so that's not exactly true.
Oh, it's not?
No, it has to do with the database search on the back end.
Oh,
when you're on Amazon, you're typing searching for something. Well. Okay, but what I'm just saying, when you're searching for something on Amazon, you start typing letters, it's going to auto finish stuff for you. It's going back and forth on the server, so it's not local. So go ahead.
Cliff, you were saying.
Yeah, I was just going to say, I mean, we use Funnel Maker. We have well more than 250 different records in Funnel Maker right now, and performance is actually really good. I've used a lot of different CRMs in my history. I'm also a recovering software engineer. I'm no longer in the field. I was in it for 20 years. Nice. And the performance of the database itself is actually very swift. I've used Salesforce in the past where it's painful. You click on something, you wait, for 25 to 35 seconds for something to actually respond back on your screen. It's extremely painful. But I do like the fact that Funnel Maker is crisp and swift.
That's key.
Good. Any other question, Matt? Okay, so here's what I would like to do, if that's okay with you. I would like to stop the recording and then have Charles talk about and answer Kristen's questions. A few other people had some questions, if that's all right with you all. And that will not be put on YouTube.
Very good.
So thank you very much, Charles, for coming today. It was very enlightening. It's very interesting. We really enjoy working with you. We like our Funnel Maker, and it is very helpful. And what we really like is that you are able to help us put things in place that are not there, that we need. and continuing to do that with us,
Hmm.
I have an appointment with you in the morning.
I saw that.
Okay. You stop recording. I hope you come back again sometime too.